I'm going to talk to you about something that's really important for your spiritual life. And I didn't get this as a kid. I was a preacher's kid, and you would be shocked at all the things I didn't quite get right. First of all, I would say, Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. I believe in Jesus as a Savior. It all stuck up in my head. I didn't realize, it's much better in your Christian life if you let it go to your heart. I mean, you're saying it either way, but the idea is that, the Christian life's a lot easier if the love moves to your heart. But then when it moves to your heart, then you get the joy and the peace and the patience and the goodness and the kindness and the ability to have self-control. Now, a major mistake I had as a kid, but it's probably a definition of gratitude, I'm talking about gratitude, was that I thought gratitude was that warm feeling in kindergarten when they gave me milk and cookies and let me have a nap. That was really great. It would be the times when I got a gift at a birthday or Christmas, that warm feeling I received. That to me was gratitude, but that's not Jesus' definition of gratitude. So we're going to look at what Jesus says about gratitude. And as Dr. D. Boswell read the scripture, it is so powerful. And I want to explain for a moment about leprosy. Back then, if your skin turned pale, you were scared. And that would be a skin disease, and you would cover it up the best you could. But there would come a time when you couldn't cover it anymore, and you were cast out of your house. You were cast out of the place of worship. You were cast out of your town. And if you saw like an old movie like Ben-Hur, you would see where Ben-Hur came to visit his mother and sister, and they were in a cave, and you would lower food down by a rope to these lepers. Leprosy was a sentence of death, and you were cut off from family and friends, and your values would change. Because we have 10 lepers in this story. And their lives were over, they were ruined, it was the end, and it was just a painful death. And at that time, it was even worse because the theology of that day said, it's your fault. You got leprosy, it's your fault. God doesn't like you. If God likes you, you'd be well and rich. If you're poor, God doesn't like you so much. And that's not what they thought. And Jesus said that's totally wrong. But that was the thinking. So these people thought they're rejected by God, they're rejected by their families, and they live in a cave. And one morning, they get up early, they got to get there before, as the people come to the market, to the farmer's market, things like that. They're on the border between Samaria and Israel. Now, Israel and Samaria hate each other. The Samaritans would worship their God as a golden calf. And the Jews would say, that is so dumb, you're just worshiping an idol. And they were just nasty to each other. But these 10 lepers, 9 were Jewish, 1 was a Samaritan. When you're dying, it doesn't matter who you hate. You give it up. What's the use of hate if you're dying? And so they're together, and you're getting up early at the crack of dawn, and they're going out to beg, and they are not allowed by law to get very close. They have to stay at a distance and beg. And people with some compassion may throw them some bread or something, and they would scramble up and say, God bless you, thank you. All of a sudden, they see a parade coming. Jesus with his disciples, with the followers, they're all coming along, and some of them must have met Jesus in Galilee before they got sick, and it's Jesus. We have a hope. And one of them may have seen somebody got healed in the synagogue or something. Oh, we heard those stories. Could it be for us? And they shout out, this is a good prayer if you want to pray. It only takes 6 words. Jesus, Master, have mercy on me. 6 words. Have mercy on us. And they're shouting it out again. Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. And Jesus stops. Jesus looks at him. Go show yourself to the priest. What kind of an answer is that? He didn't come up and touch him. He didn't say you're healed. Go show yourself to the priest. And in that day, one of our jobs as priests, for Stacy or Howard or me or Lynn, or even the clergy here, we would certify you that you were well. And if you had leprosy was healed, we had to certify you so you could go back home. And they're just discouraged. They're going to walk back to the cave. They're totally in despair, and they're wrapping and rewrapping their bandages, and all of a sudden that whiteness is leaving them. Oh, look, look. And they're all shouting, they're excited, they're thrilled, and they are going to do what Jesus told them to do. They are rushing to go to a priest, to his priest in Samaria, and the 9 Jewish guys to their priest to get certified that they're healed, and they're all excited. And one of them stops. Now we're going to get to Jesus' definition of gratitude. One of them stops. The other 9 are running on. And he turns around and he walks back. And he falls at Jesus' feet and says, thank you. And he gives praise to God. And Jesus has a teaching message for his disciples because they don't like Samaritans. They really don't. 2 of them, James and John, wanted to kill all the guys in one of the villages in Samaria. And he says, disciples, where are the 9? Only one came back, and this is a Samaritan. Jesus is always pointing out to them where the Gentiles had faith or where the Samaritans did good. That's what it takes to have gratitude to Jesus. Is that you've got to stop. And stop your rush, stop what you're doing. Who has blessed me? Who do I need to acknowledge? Is there a grandma, a grandpa? Is there a scout leader? Somebody from Eastern Star or school? Is there somebody in the youth group? You stop. And you share to that mentor, whoever it was, your gratitude. That's what gratitude is. It's not just that feeling, it's an action. And that's what Jesus is teaching here. Now the other 9, what happened to them? They were going to thank Jesus. And Dr. Albert Schweitzer, that great missionary of Africa, when he read this, he had it in his commentary. They felt gratitude, and they were going to thank Jesus later. Well, what happened later? You're going to find Jesus on the cross. He's not there. He's on a cross. They can't do it. And this has happened to me. Oh. You ever too late to give gratitude or thanks? I remember when I first came here, I heard wonderful stories of Reverend Roy Buffett. He was here from 1935 to 1960, and he was a great pastor and a leader in the community, and he retired in 1960, and I came in 1980 and then 1981, and when I heard about all the great things he did, let's do something for him. Let's put together a scrapbook. Let's gather pictures, and people can write letters. This would be great. And we raised $1,000, and we go, it takes quite a while to do all this. Hello, Mrs. Buffett. You got something for your husband? He died 2 months ago. Oh. Yeah, you kind of feel this small sometimes. That's what delay can do. In other words, it's like those 9. They ran out of time to thank Jesus. Oh. Now, I didn't feel quite so bad when I realized that later she told us that he had a thing which we now know is called Alzheimer's disease, and it wouldn't have made any difference. It's like, oh. But she really enjoyed the pictures and the letters and brought back all the happy memories. But you see, that's the difficulty we have in thanking people, acknowledging them. Now, when you show gratitude, Shakespeare had a word for this, and I'm going to use it for gratitude. He used it for mercy in The Merchant of Venice. And he has a guy called Shylock, and there's Portia, the judge, and she's trying to convince Shylock not to cut out a pound of flesh out of the person who owed him money. And she says this, the quality of mercy is not strained. It falls as the gentle rain from heaven, and it blesses is twice blessed. It blesses the giver and the receiver, and I promise you that if you take the time to acknowledge those people in your life, that is twice blessed. You're blessing the person you're sharing, and you're blessing yourself. You're both blessed. You both get that warm sensation, from doing that. Now, at the close of Paul's life, and I'm reading from 2 Timothy, and 2 Timothy is what our Bible class, our adult class, has been studying downstairs, and now they're into 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, and I recommend that class to you. It's really great. Paul is at the end of his life, and what are you going to do at the end of your life? And I can tell you why he thought it was the end of life. He's in jail. He's a Roman citizen, so he's treated better than other prisoners. They won't crucify him. They don't do that to the Roman citizens. And Paul is a Roman citizen, and he has appeared before a Caesar called Nero. Does Nero like Christians? No. When Rome burned, he crucified hundreds and hundreds of them. It doesn't look good, and he knows he's going to die soon. And he writes his last letter, and it's so moving. And he writes his dear son in the faith, Timothy, do your best to come to me soon. Timothy's a pastor. And he said, Timothy, he's a young one, come to me soon. But why? Caesar's there, And then he says, Luke alone is with me. Luke is his private doctor. He had been beaten up so many times. He may have had malaria, other problems. Dr. Luke is with me. Get Mark and bring him. Now, Mark, he fought with Mark. He busted up his relationship with Barnabas over Mark, when Mark chickened out on a missionary trip and went home to Jerusalem to be with Mom. But he puts Mark down. In other words, when you get older, those old fights don't count. And then Mark, of course, wrote the Gospel of Mark. And he goes on. Then when you come, bring the cloak. Why? It's going to get cold this winter. Bring your coat, bring the cloak, bring the books, bring the parchments. But then he says this. Now this is what I want you to catch really well. Do your best to come before winter. Do your best to come before winter. Why? Time is running out, and in winter, the ships don't go on the Mediterranean Sea. Paul told one ship, don't go on the sea. He was a prisoner. Don't go on the sea. It's winter. You'll get a storm. Sure enough, a storm hit. The boat sank. They made it to shore. But you don't go. And if Timothy doesn't respond to Paul and go right away, he won't make it. And then he'll have to wait till spring, and spring may be too late. So who are the folks in your family? Who are your friends? Who are the ones we need to acknowledge to come before winter? I'm going to give you one example where I did this. We had a great guy in our community, Bill Walker, and he had done so much. He was a Tuskegee Airman. He wanted to become a commercial pilot. They had prejudice that day. He couldn't do it. But out of his church and out of his school at Lincoln School, Bill Norwood became the first commercial African-American pilot right here in Centralia, the first one. Yeah, she calls it Bill Walker. He did so many good things. He came to the Illinois Theater after the war, sat down in the auditorium, and the usher says, "Sir, please go to the balcony." He says, "No, I fought in this war. I'm staying right here." And what a guy. He stopped it. They integrated the theater. And he did so many good things at the school. As a principal, you can't do this now. He would say, "All right, Monday morning, how many of you kids went to Sunday school?" I mean, he was great, encouraging them. And so when he was dying, I went to the hospital and I went through all the things he did. I had a chance to tell him how grateful we were and the difference Bill Walker made. So I'm going to close with an illustration that applies to you, and it's your story. And here it goes. It comes from a movie that had a Presbyterian in it. And his name was Jimmy Stewart. He was Presbyterian. His dad was sang in the choir in Pennsylvania. And when he went to war, Dad gave him Psalm 91 to carry with him because he was a bomber going over Germany, and he read it every day when he could be his last flight over Germany. He comes back to Hollywood he's a star, and Dad comes to visit and says, "Where's your church?" Haven't made it back to church yet, you know, and well, we're going to find one. They find a Presbyterian church, and he goes, and he becomes an elder later in the church. Now, he is in a wonderful movie, and this movie is just so touching. It was called A Wonderful Life, and I got this, you know, out of a yard sale for 50 cents. I always like it. Yeah, you see, I'm a big spender. But what it's all about is this. He plays the role of a savings and loan banker who gives businesses loans, people loans, and his uncle takes $10,000 to the Potter Bank. Potter's the evil guy. Leaves it there accidentally. Potter steals it, and now that will make the savings and loan close. And Jimmy Stewart is ready to end his life. He's on a bridge, going to jump in because everything is ruined. And Clarence, the angel, is sent to set him straight. And Clarence is on the ball because as Jimmy's looking at the river, Clarence jumps in. And Jimmy Stewart, of course, rescues the angel Clarence. He doesn't have his wings yet. And he pulls him to safety. And then Clarence gives him a gift, and I want you to have the same gift. This is the gift I want you to see. And the gift that was received was this. He could see what that town would be like and what the people would be like without him. And what I'm saying about you is that you make a huge difference to your family. You make a profound difference to the place where you worship. You make a big difference in the community, in the nation. So many of you served in the military. You've made a difference there. But in so many ways in your service on mission trips, as Dr. Clark is in Mexico now, you've made a profound difference. And Jimmy Stewart, the person he took on in that play, all of a sudden could see what the town, whose name was changed to Potterville, and it was all gloomy, and things were going awful, and he could see what a difference it was. And he finally gets them back home. They were all worried about him. And here's what happened at the end. The people of the community all came with money. They put up the $10,000 to save the building alone from going under. And we have that picture where he's being hugged by the kids by a Christmas tree. And then the bell rings. And that means Clarence has got his wings. He did a good deed and got his wings. But the point is this. That's who you are. I wish you could get that. It's clear to me when I do the celebrations of life. It's really clear. You make a profound difference. And I want you to know that. Well, it's been a privilege serving as your pastor. Because, you know, love does grow here. So thank you so much, and that's the meditation.